All right, class. Welcome back. Again, today we are working on TEAC 6.4G, converting fraction, decimal, and percents. So today, to start off our lesson, I want you to discuss with your group members why is it important to know how to find equivalent forms of numbers, fractions, decimals, and percents. I want you to take 2 minutes to go ahead and discuss it with your group and then write down the answer that you guys came up with. Teachers, pause the video and give scholars 2 minutes to write down their answer to this question. Why is it important to know how to find equivalent forms of numbers, fraction, decimals, and percents? It is important to find equivalent forms of fractions so that decimals and percents so that you may be able to solve problems when you are presented with different forms. So, today we are going to study the list of numbers, complete the steps below, and you can use the numbers more than once. So the first thing I did was I wrote all of my numbers down. And as you can see, I have all forms of numbers. I have fractions, percents, and decimals. I even have a weird one that you probably haven't seen before, a fraction percent. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you look at A says to circle one pair of equivalent numbers. Equivalent numbers. First, we need to write them in all of the same forms because how do we know what is equivalent to 3/4 when we have percents and decimals and fractions? So let's think. You should already know that 3 out of 4 is the same as 3/4 out of a dollar, which is 75 cents. So that's 75 hundredths. 50%. If we start at the percent and move 2 places to the left, it becomes 50 hundredths. Or if you drop that 0, 5 tenths, which is the same thing. This number is already written in decimal form as well as this number. Here we go. This is a fraction. Remember, how do we turn fractions into decimals? We divide the denominator into the numerator. So let's do that really quickly. Remember, always take your decimal up first. 8 can't go into 5, but 8 can go into 50 6 times. 6 times 8 is 48. That gives us 2. We don't have remainders with decimals. Add a 0, bring it down. 8 goes into 20 2 times. That leaves us with 16. Subtract, that's 4. Add a 0. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. Subtract, that's 0. So 5/8 as a decimals is 625 thousandths. And this number is already written as a decimal. This number is already written as a decimal. And this number is not written as a decimal. We know that 1/2 is the same as 0.5, so 62.5%. Remember, it doesn't matter how many digits you have. You always start at the decimal and move 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So 62 and 1/2 is the same as 625 thousandths. Now that we have turned all of our numbers into equivalent forms, and before we go on, I'm going to say that I chose to turn all of them to decimals because that's what's easier for me. If you want to turn all of your numbers into fractions or percents, that's up to you. Do what works best for you. So look back at A. It says circle one pair of equivalent numbers. The equivalent numbers we have here are 5/8, because that is 625 thousandths, and 62 and 1/2%, which is 625 thousandths. So those two numbers, 62 and 1/2% and 5/8, should be circled for A. Next it says draw a triangle around any number equivalent to 3 parts out of 5. What is 3 parts out of 5? 3/5. We have to see what is equivalent to 3/5. This is a fraction. Let's turn it into a decimal. This one is easy because we know that 5 can go into 36 times. So that's 0.6. This number is equivalent to 0.6 or 6 tenths. So we're going to put a triangle around that number. So go ahead and draw a triangle around that number. C says to draw a rectangle around any number equivalent to a fraction in which the numerator is half of the denominator. So again, draw a rectangle around any number equivalent to a fraction in which the numerator is half of the denominator. So first, let's see where the numerator is half of the denominator. 50 is half of 100, so 50% is a fraction where the numerator is half of the denominator. We're going to draw a rectangle around that one. All right, so I've given you the answers to A, B, and C. Work with the partner, and you're going to finish D through H. Teachers, go ahead and pause the video. Give scholars about 5 to 10 minutes to finish that as a group, and then come back for the answer. Alrighty, so let's look at what our answers are. And as you can see, some answers actually were used more than once. So if we look at the next page, I would like you to do the next page on your own and then check it with the key.